Good afternoon, and a very warm welcome on behalf of CIO Leader and IBM to this session. Joining us in today's discussion of the topic, Accelerating Business Agility with Open Hybrid Cloud, are Mr. Ashish Desai, CIO Chemical Business, Grasim Industries, Mr. Gyan Pandey, Global and Group CIO, Aurobindo Pharma, Mr. C. Subramania, Global Chief Technology Officer, Hinduja Global Solutions, Ms. Shobna Lele, Chief Information Officer, Bombay Dyeing and Manufacturing Company, Mr. L.B. Sharma, General Manager IT, Bharat Petroleum Corporation, Mr. Anand Budolia, Chief Information Officer, Birla Corporation, and Mr. Sanjay Lula, Executive IBM Red Hat Synergy Leader, Global Business Services, India and South Asia, IBM. So welcome everybody to this session. And let me begin by just putting some context to this discussion and we'll start. So over the past 12 to 18 months, there has been a dramatic increase in the adoption of various flavors of cloud services like private, public, hybrid, IaaS, PaaS, SaaS. I mean, there's a wide variety of cloud services that people are adopting. And the recent surge towards cloud services has been driven by the needs to manage the pandemic situation and the change in the way we've been working. There has been a general shift towards cloud services by enterprises over the years. And the proliferation of service providers, good value proposition, great flexibility, technology innovation in the cloud space, growing confidence of CIOs in cloud offering has all contributed to the uptake of cloud services. But with many enterprises accelerating their digital transformation initiatives, we expect that the use of cloud services will continue to grow. And this is evidenced by the number of data centers that are being set up around the country. So you are seeing as evidence of that. So while the convenience of provisioning services, the availability, reliability have been big drivers in the adoption of cloud services, there are still some challenges and doubts around selecting, deploying, migrating, managing, optimizing, and securing cloud services for the enterprise. So in today's discussion, we'll talk a little bit about open cloud. And so I'd like to start off the discussion by asking the panel, how would you define an open hybrid cloud? What is your understanding of an open hybrid cloud? Maybe I can start with Mr. Subramanian.
Thank you, Giri. I think it was a good introduction. As you rightly said, first thing is hybrid cloud, and then going more so with the right panelists being there and with the IBM being there from the team from Red Hat, etc. So I think open hybrid cloud, if you look at the definition, it is very, very important that what we have seen, that you don't have to really get stuck to one specific cloud. So that means from what we are really seeing, the operating systems or the partner ecosystem or the OEMs whom we really work with, I think there is a wide variety of choice for the CIOs today. So I think from whatever I can really get to, have I really migrated to an open hybrid cloud? No. Am I on a hybrid cloud? Yes. So is there a plans for you to really look at an open hybrid cloud? Why not? That's the way we will all look at, because I think the right word which you coined, an open hybrid cloud, because it would definitely, optimization will be a journey for every cloud, migrating customers. So let's say, for example, we as a service provider, if we are trying to migrate a lot of our services towards the cloud, we need to certainly keep optimizing it. If we have to optimize it, certainly we need to look at varieties of offerings provided by various service providers. So I think the coined word of open hybrid cloud will really make sense for all of us to get a little more deeper and try to work on that, so that we don't really get married to a particular cloud. We are absolutely open. One, in terms of being on multi-cloud, at the same time being cost effective and working at the best of the businesses for our clients by being on the open hybrid cloud. So stating on the hybrid cloud, Mr. Giridhar, I think that's the way every company is really going. If you look at, for us, we have really done a lot of, because it is not that every application is ready to move to the cloud. So we need to really charter which are the ones which have to be prioritized, which are the ones which we can really take a sudden jump, which are the ones which you need to put it at the back burner and take it over a period of time. And the offerings provided, like you rightly said, various infrastructure as a service, PaaS and SaaS and so many things, you need to draw a roadmap with the business and try to find out which are the ones which is going to be there to get on a hybrid cloud. So with this, I will just pass it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you have set the very good context, Mr. Subramania, and I want to ask Mr. Sharma also. What is, in your view, an open hybrid cloud, and why is this of any interest to you?
Yeah, thank you for having me, Mr. Girdhar. Thanks. Coming back to the point of open hybrid cloud, as Mr. Subramaniam has covered, we are having a lot of options in the current environment of hosting our IT workload, be it on premise, be it on a cloud, which is a public cloud. It could be on a private cloud. Now we also have edge cloud. So there are a lot of options for hosting our IT workload. Now every cloud offering has got a specific USP, which we call it very specific to the specific cloud offering. That makes us to maybe a kind of align with that kind of technology in that environment. How do I make it kind of open so that I can freely host or migrate from one environment, one cloud to other cloud, on-prem to public or a private. So in my view, open hybrid cloud is something which can provide a uniform kind of runtime environment, can provide maybe uniform management, can provide me the monitoring. This all comprises where I can use it without being logged into a specific technology and environment. So that's what in my view is an open hybrid cloud.
Thank you. So, in fact, you raised some very intriguing questions from what you have said, and I would like to perhaps put them to Mr. Ashish Desai. So which is that, what are your challenges in operating a hybrid cloud environment? I think Mr. Sharma has alluded to some of them, but maybe you can amplify some of them as well.
Thanks, Girdhar and Subbu. See, a few challenges which I would like to highlight. So, hybrid cloud, is it a choice? No, I don't think so it's a choice. People will go for hybrid cloud in near future. A few things which I would feel that we should consider while going for the challenge in going for the hybrid cloud is that how do we ensure that the application which is being developed works seamlessly on all the clouds? To give an example, there are some companies or the startups who have developed their application which works pretty well if you go on a particular cloud, but does not work well when you move to some other cloud. So how do you ensure that your applications run seamlessly on all the clouds? That's something which will be one of the challenge, which I would say. Second, the data out part. So moment you go for the hybrid cloud, you also have to put a control on how do you manage your data out. Because data out, once for every cloud company, data out is kind of a meter, right? How do you put the control on your data out? How do you put that, what kind of data should be moving across your clouds, right? Third, do we have any kind of automation which can seamlessly work with both the or different cloud service providers? And the fourth, the skill sets to manage the different clouds. So I think these are the four, I would say, challenges, Girdhar, which I would see for the hybrid cloud.
Thank you, Ashish. I think very aptly you have put the four challenges which are there. I think these are probably common to all CIOs and they can all resonate with these observations. But still, I'll ask Mr. Gyan Pandey if he wants to add anything in terms of challenges of hybrid cloud.
No, I think for our fellow panelists have summarized well. Just to add a couple of things to that, what Ashish has said and what Mrs. Sharma Subramaniam has said. I think the different services, whether in terms of provisioning security or enabling security or in terms of getting some flexibility, every cloud will have its own way of or terminology itself. So if you have a certain skill set, expertise on one cloud, that will not be applicable for other cloud. And that either you have to go for the service hiring with some partners, or you have to develop that skills internally. And that I feel that at some point of time that become completely not a very efficient utilization of those skills. We should look for, I mean, this is a far bigger question in terms of the cloud space. If we can have standardization of those services also across the service provider. At the same time, the governance and management, that is also one of the challenge. And if you have to keep on moving from multiple clouds and all. And cost, of course, that is the one factor which will be deciding in terms of the business benefit or the economical operation point of view. But the performance-wise, how that performance can be optimized and it could be more put in the uniform way. Moving, I mean, first of all, we are not filtering out the applications which are not ready for the cloud. The applications which are ready for the cloud, even that performance, if can be benchmarked at different clouds, probably that will help.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey. So Shobna, I want to ask you another question, which is, in your view, why does a hybrid cloud make sense? Why not just go completely cloud?
Right.
I mean, why do you need a hybrid architecture at all?
Right. So I think there are various reasons as to why a hybrid cloud is really a must, right? Some of the points which were covered earlier would also repeat, like, for example, certifications. Now, something like an SAP would need a certified, data center, or, the cloud which is certified to be running on SAP with this, specific databases. So there could be applications which are running only on specific type of architecture, okay, which specific cloud providers provide, right? So that is one of the reasons. That is the specialization of the certification. The other is it is becoming more and more imperative in India as well that you have the data centers which are located in India. So although you are taking the services from a lot of multinational companies, you still need to ensure that the data center that they are operating with for your data is basically located in India. The third is the partner ecosystem. So particularly for critical applications, you may need a very strong partner ecosystem. For maybe the non-critical applications, you can look at, in terms of the cost and pricing, you can look at other, smaller options that as well. So pricing along with the partner ecosystem is another criteria. The fourth is there may be some applications or there may be some legacy tools that you're having, okay, which are not ready for cloud as yet. So, some of those applications would still need to survive on-prem or, on a data center, which is not really, cloud-ready type of a data center. These are the 3-4 reasons why a hybrid becomes a necessity. And I think it also mutually benefits, the companies in the long run to have these various kinds of options, because it's always not, advisable to put all your eggs in one basket, like, we always say.
De-risking.
You have your risks, yeah.
Yeah. But the question is, when you talk to CFOs, they are not interested in cloud. They actually want you to buy the asset.
Yeah. So I think when the CapEx versus OpEx is, of course, one of the longest, discussions that has been there from the time the cloud journey started. But I think what really adds value to the cloud is the first and foremost is your compliances in terms of a DR setup. So if you also need to have a DR setup, I think it's going to be almost double your CapEx cost, which is not going to be possible. And the second is the peak workloads that we see, at month ends or seasonal workloads, which we are able to more easily manage in terms of a cloud. I think those are the two main drivers for the CFOs to really understand why a cloud would work for an organization.
Thanks. So, Anand, I want to ask you to come in and, Shobna talked a little bit about, what's the business value of having hybrid cloud technologies. So from your perspective, what are the sort of plus points of having a hybrid cloud kind of architecture?
Okay. Thank you for having me here. And good evening to everyone, fellow CIOs. I think my previous speaker has already, explained the need of having the hybrid cloud. I think it is just a matter of time where most of the organizations will have the hybrid cloud, because even if the organization who are having an on-prem setup, some sort of cloud services would be using, or they would be using very soon. Now, it is important that every organization define the digital transformation journey. So it is not possible to simply move from the on-prem to a cloud service provider. So there is a need to define the objective of the digital transformation and work out a roadmap. Now, hybrid cloud is a reality because at any given point of time, you will have the on-prem some solutions which you cannot simply migrate, be the ERP. If you have an on-prem ERP, you cannot simply migrate to the cloud. So it requires a transformation plan. And at the same time, every organization will also like to adapt some of the newer technologies. So that is the way you have to adapt some of the service cloud provider. And all cloud provider will not be able to provide all the services. So you have to evaluate which technology platform suits your requirement. And in some cases, it will be a private cloud. In some cases, it will be a public cloud. So the hybrid cloud is something which we cannot avoid in future. We will have to live with it. Now, with moving to hybrid cloud, there are few challenges. So while we become agile in focusing on our solving the business problems, but at the same time, it comes with some certain challenges. So cyber security is one of the challenge which as a CIO we need to manage. And with multiple cloud, the challenges become much more. Having the standardization or even identifying a right kind of a partner who can support us on the various cloud service provider. Now, coming back to the hybrid as well as open, because with each service provider, there would be certain solutions or technology platforms which are available or say best available with them. But if we are investing too much on the development effort, should not we think that we will be hooked up to one technology and platform. Suppose if we have to move out from one service provider to the other platform, it should not become a challenge. So the hybrid cloud is a reality for a digital transformation journey for any organization, but there are certain challenges. So we have to work out the effort versus what benefit we are going to get. And coming to the question of convincing the CFO, what is important here is to define the digital transformation journey, the overall benefit of that journey. And that way, I think we can convince the CFOs and the leadership about the overall digital transformation journey rather than taking it as a cloud transformation journey.
Thank you, Anandji. So, Sanjay, I would like to ask this question to you. So, what are the developments which are promoting or enabling an open hybrid cloud? What are the key sort of technological advancements that have happened that make this more attractive or better?
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm really honored to be in this esteemed.
Can you speak a little bit louder, please, Sanjay? Yeah.
Are you able to hear me well?
Yeah, this is better, yes.
Yeah, first of all, thank you. I'm really esteemed and honored to be with this kind of audience, and the level of insight which has been shared is quite good. Now, so, I would like to answer this a little differently. I would like to start with the definition of open hybrid cloud, right? So in my view, an open hybrid cloud is a platform or an architecture. You can actually name it either way, which gives me some very, very unique benefits. First of all, this open hybrid cloud architecture allows me to deploy my applications on my infrastructure of choice. That infrastructure of choice could be on-premise, could be on a private cloud, could be on any public cloud like Amazon, IBM, or Azure. And it also give me the flexibility of any edge location. It should give me the flexibility of specific cloud providers as well. So which means irrespective of choice of landing zone, I should be able to deploy my applications. That is point number one. Point number two is that the hybrid cloud architecture should allow me an abstracted, unified cloud fabric. I may want to call it a cloud operating system. The biggest tenet of that cloud operating system is that it allows me to write once, right? Write an application once and deploy it anywhere, right? So which means I can write an application on using that particular cloud operating system and deploy it at my choice where I want. It could be on-premise, private cloud, public cloud, edge location, or it could be specific appliances as well. Some people may be may have specific affinities, right? So I want to write once, I want to deploy anywhere, right? And for that, I need an abstracted cloud fabric. On top of that, I want to deploy important software which helps me achieve API integration, software which helps me achieve agile DevOps, software which helps me achieve integration, software which helps me achieve data platform or data lakes, software that helps me generate insight through AI, software which helps me integrate with third-party ISV applications. Like I want to work with a UPI application provider, or I want to work with a particular AI. So choice of application, whether it is in-house developed or whether it is external, a very, very agile DevOps environment. On top of all that, I also need the flexibility with which I can create intelligent workflows for a particular stream of business thought. I want to do app modernization, as well as I want to do digital intervention, because especially in this pandemic, everyone has realized that we want to incorporate digital technologies as much as we can, so that we can become an agile, nimble-footed, friendly company for our clients. The clients could be B2B or B2C. So the most important thing, the most important development which is happening in this space is this ability to create a cloud operating system on which, if I create an application, I can deploy that application anywhere with the click of a button. I can burst into a cloud, I can come back, I can exit from a cloud, I can move to another cloud, as well as manage multiple cloud environments. Because if you were to look at the world today, 67% of our enterprise customers worldwide have more than one cloud. Like someone said, we don't want to put all our eggs in one basket. That is true. Every customer, whether he has his own cloud environment or whether he has bought public environments, has more than one or two clouds. 67% customers have. Whereas the other reality is that 20% of the enterprise workloads worldwide today are still, 20% of them have only moved to clouds. 80% are still in-house, and there are a lot of complications because of which customers have not moved. Now, if we have the right consulting partner, if we have the right methodology, then we definitely have processes with which we can move customers to a hybrid cloud environment.
Thank you, Sanjay. So, you brought up an intriguing concept, which is that, the cloud operating system. So I want to ask the CIOs, do you think it's real? Do you think it has value to have a cloud operating system? Some of you, of course, talked about this concept, maybe not called it cloud operating system, but you have alluded to it. So, Subramaniam, what do you think?
Certainly, yes, I think very, very well, because it's important from open cloud, open hybrid cloud perspective that we need to have. We need to have the flexibility. The operating system is very, very key. Each of them offer a different flavor. We need to have a lot more interoperability. We need to really look at cloud orchestration, because this is very, very important for a service provider like ours. Because if we really don't have a cloud orchestration and optimization, if we don't really manage this, I think the cost will really go haywire. This increased charges for any company, I think it will be pretty huge. So this orchestration has to be big. If it is on an open source type of platform, it will be far more better. So that's a very good thing. So that's a lot of companies would not have jumped it today, because the availability has been not at the helm of what AWS or Azure offered. I think over a period of time, this has really come up, which is very good. I think Sanjay will, with he being in this panel and trying to really talk to all CIOs and trying to promote that, will ensure that, a lot more companies start picking this up, because everybody wants to really think, continue to really see what is that we innovate, because we can't reach and remain. We need to keep on innovating. So this could be an operating system on a cloud will really become the next of what we need to really do for us to innovate and try to optimize the whole thing. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Subramania. So, Mr. Sharma, what is your view about having this kind of an open operating system for the clouds?
I think very pertinent questions. Some, if we take a cue from a kind of hypervisor which has come in past, which has brought a lot of help to people like us in infrastructure and operation managing easily. I think the cloud operating system is again going to create that kind of a revolution in terms of, if I would call, because as of now we are having very limited kind of our very well known operating systems which we are using for our IT workload. Cloud operating system, once it comes in, I mean, it's already there in some form, but if it comes in a practice or people adopt en masse, I think it is going to help to all organizations to manage their IT workload maybe more uniformly. The migration hassles, changing environment. I mean, it will be truly, kind of open hybrid, wherein you do not have to rely a specific or tied to a specific environment. So that will definitely change the way we are managing today. With some kind of service, tomorrow probably it will be at a, available at a platform level or at an operating system level itself.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. So, in fact, Shobna, I wanted to ask you, there was this point mentioned about interoperability and orchestration of clouds. So what are the real challenges there today? And, what is your expectation that how it should be improved?
Yeah. So I do agree with a lot of points that were just, mentioned in terms of the open hybrid that we're talking about. And I think the challenges that currently we face in terms of the migration from one to another, that is something that, definitely an open hybrid cloud is something that, we would look forward to. So what are the challenges is basically, obviously, the first thing that we need to be extremely careful about is how the interfaces are being transferred, because normally when you transfer your application from one to another, there is always a little disruption that happens in terms of the various interface or the connects that you have with that specific system, right? The second and other important point is the certifications, because you may do a lot of your secure layer certifications, etc., on the specific instance that you're having, which also need to seamlessly transfer without a break from one system to another system. The third is, if you're also migrating in terms of a database or in terms of an operating system, then you would need to actually build up the processes to ensure that the testing and other things are taken care of when this kind of a migration occurs. And more in terms of a partner, we need to ensure that whoever was your earlier partner, okay, has completely dismantled the system and completely deleted or removed the instance from their systems, which physically really impossible to really confirm, but through whatever the contractual obligations that are there, we need to ensure that all the data or all the instances that were being hosted on one of the first platform are completely removed. So these are the various things that I see as challenges or in terms of the interoperability that we are having today, that we face today practically.
Thank you. So, Ashish, if you would like to add anything on your views about the interoperability and orchestration between clouds.
I think Girdhar, this is going to be required, because as I was telling my first question as well, because see, things like SAP, today you're running on the primary server as, let's say, on AWS. How do you ensure that you have a proper proper DR? Maybe how do you ensure you also take care of your country specific requirement, like companies like ours, which has operations in, let's say, countries like Indonesia. wherein they also want you to be having their landscape locally in their country. How do you ensure that you can meet your local compliance need as well? So considering this, I think you need to have application or the infrastructure, right, or the cloud service, which is interoperable, right? You need to define your application which can run interoperably with any of the service providers. As we had faced certain issues in the past, where we developed something, it was a kind of a AI model which we developed with someone, but it ran properly in one particular cloud. But once we tried to move on to another cloud, we had faced certain challenges. So how do you ensure that your application strategy is cloud agnostic? So this is quite pertinent question, and we should take care of it well in advance itself.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, good point.
As well.
So, Sanjay, the question then I want to put to you that we are now talking about when it comes to developing modern applications, using, concepts like containers, loosely coupled applications, having distributed, let's say, applications where, database is in one place, the application is in another place, in the third place, you have some other logic which is running. So how does an open hybrid cloud help in such situations?
So see, open hybrid cloud is built on the premise that I will be completely abstracted from the dependencies of the underlying libraries as well as the developer framework, right? So open clouds, open hybrid clouds, especially the ones which leverage Red Hat OpenShift, they give you a managed Kubernetes environment, which is self-healing, self-sufficient. And it actually allows me to bring in either new applications, which means develop new applications on the container technology, or it allows me to migrate from my existing monolithic applications to microservices. So if I go back to the basic 101s, all the years applications were written in a monolithic way. Now, because the applications were written in a monolithic way, it was very difficult for me to make changes depending on business needs. And that is why time to market was a big problem. But with this container-based architecture, what we are looking at is a federated system, right? So which means that I'm now breaking my monolithic application into microservices, and those microservices are what the containers are. Obviously, I combine multiple containers to create pods so that I can create uniform security policies, uniform management policies, uniform orchestration policies. And a combination of these microservices will deliver me my end functionality. And these microservices could be distributed across a large number of worker nodes. So I could have, let's say, 13 worker nodes to run a particular application. And tomorrow when I want to add more worker nodes, I simply add them on the fly. The microservices just spread across those additional worker nodes. I can drop worker nodes, I can add worker nodes, I can do disaster recovery between multiple environments, I can create CI/CD pipelines, I can run, the same platform is used to infuse new applications, which means I can use the operator framework to download AI tools like Python, Torch, Caffe. I can do DevOps tools. I can download third-party container images for payments or whatever category I like. So with this architecture, I am able to incorporate multiple technologies in a compliant way because containers are secure containers, and I am able to spread my application in a federated fashion across multiple workloads around multiple worker nodes, and thereby achieve scale as well as efficiency. So this entire architecture is built on that premise, and absolutely microservices and containers is the way to go.
So I would I'd like the panel to sort of, go ahead, Mr. Subramanian.
Yes, I want to ask something from Sanjay. Sanjay, from whatever you have seen in the market today, and with the maturity what we do have, where are we in the journey between the cloud federation? So what I mean is federation between the cloud providers. Is there a journey? Is there a map? It's like the telecom operators in the world today, right? You buy it from Airtel, you buy it from Vodafone and everything, right? Mm-hmm. So today, is there a roadmap being drawn by any committee, or is there any governance which is really being framed for cloud federation between the providers also?
So cloud federation between the providers obviously can happen at high level logical interfaces. But if I were to talk specific to Kubernetes, I would say the one consistent cloud operating system which is now available with all cloud providers is Red Hat OpenShift. So when you go on Amazon, you can have a ROSA service, which is managed OpenShift. When you go on Azure, you have an ARO. When you go on IBM Cloud, you have ROCs. Now, all these are managed OpenShift services, which means that you can federate between these clouds by writing a workload at one particular location, which is your on-premise location, and you could now start moving your workload between multiple clouds. We also have very, very advanced technology now with which I can now manage multiple clusters. So let's say you have a payment application running on your own on-premise, because payment applications are latency sensitive, so you would like to keep them at your choice of location, right? And let's say you have a API interface developed for your organization across all your sister companies on, let's say, Azure, right? So now you have multiple clusters. You can still federate between the clusters, do centralized provisioning, do centralized management by using these federated management technology like ACM. So with ACM, now you can manage multiple clusters from a single station, right? And when I say multiple managed clusters, it is not only deployment, it is provisioning, it is management, it is security, it is a lot of things, right? So I would say it's a journey, but all this is now really becoming available, and we have started implementing a lot of projects where these are being done.
So Sanjay, Sanjay, what you have explained, could that solve Ashish's problem where he said that, he has multiple geographic locations and each having its own, specific requirements in terms of, data residency and compliance and all. So does it help in such cases?
Absolutely, absolutely. With a managed OpenShift environment and applications deployed on that kind of a Kubernetes architecture, I can achieve that. Also, there is a very interesting subject which has become prominent nowadays, which is distributed cloud. I'm not sure how many of you have gone through it, but with that, you can manage multiple geographic locations very, very easily. So you can apply one set of security policies or one set of provisioning policies across all your locations with the click of a button. So I think a lot of work has happened in that area.
So what exactly does a distributed cloud entail? I mean, how do you create one?
Yeah, so if I were to look at two ends of a coin, at one end you have an environment which is completely on-premise, traditional, right? On the other end, you have a public cloud. Now, there are a lot of things which you love about the public cloud, the fact that they are very nimble-footed and they are pay-per-use and they are, they use a lot of modern technologies, which means they are natively modernized. Whereas in your traditional environment, you have taken your own journey over time. You may have a lot of fragmented applications and you're really managing the show. But there are things about your on-premise locations which are good, and there are things about on-premise which are not that good, right? I will not say bad. The same happens to cloud as well. So for example, if you have a factory shop floor and you want to run an analytics application for worker safety, now, there is no sense in making that application run on a remote cloud, right? Because that application has to take a decision there and then, right? Which means latency is very important. But can you create a data center on your shop floor? No, you don't want to, because you have created a data center with a lot of planning at a particular location, right? So you have a latency problem, you have a skills problem, and you want to run an application at a particular choice of location, which could be an edge location, it could be a remote branch, it could be a manufacturing facility, it could be a place where you want IoT integration. Now, to do all that, latency is very important, right? And that is why you want to run an application at that location. To do that, what distributed cloud does is it gives you the cloud experience at your choice of location. So for example, if I am an automobile company and if I want to do visual analytics or quality control in my shop floor. Now on my shop floor, it is not possible for me to put a full-fledged data center. I can put 4 or 5 servers and I don't need skills because I will not be able to afford skills in that remote location, right? So what I will do is I will buy 5 servers and I will get them interconnected with a distributed cloud provider. That concept is now actually available. IBM has a solution called Satellite, right? And now what will happen is that the Kubernetes environment, which is OpenShift, will get remotely deployed by the IBM cloud location to that choice of location, which is your shop floor, which means those 6-7 servers will now come under the control of IBM cloud, and the application will be pushed, and the day-to management of that Kubernetes environment will also be managed remotely. So your data is with you, your application is with you, your analytics workflows are with you, but the management of those limited servers is managed by a remote cloud, right? So it really makes life simple for you. You get the response there itself, which means you don't have a latency issue, but you also have a flexibility now where you get the experience of a cloud, you get pay-per-use, you get enhanced management, you get you get the choice of doing one-click deploy of applications of your choice, which could be open source databases, it could be analytics applications or whatever, but you also get them on-premise.
So, Mr. Pandey, do you see any benefit of this kind of distributed cloud for your kind of organization, given that you have multiple geographic locations and remote plants and everything?
No, I think what Sanjay was speaking about distributed cloud, that's a real challenge in case of manufacturing segment. And it basically, most of the times your manufacturing plants will not be in the city area where you will have not bandwidth challenges and all. Latency is always a problem, even connecting with your own on-premise data center of your corporate data center and all. So at times when you go on the OT side, on the manufacturing side, on some digital initiatives, even though the business is ready for that, your IT infra always holds you back, because whether it is underlying IT infra within your premises or whether it is some service provider, distributed cloud in such a case will be a very big blessing, I will say, in that way. But I have one question on that, Sanjay, probably that, okay, even in the distributed cloud, how we are going to address, because there's a very pertinent questions whenever you talk about the cloud, whether internally or in this kind of forum, the data security and compliance, how we are going to address this. I think compliance part with respect to whether it is residency or the privacy, that will be taken care of. But the data security also, how we are going to address this, if you can throw some light on that.
Yeah. So this remote distributed cloud location does not carry your data. It only provides management commands. I mean, I'm using very simplistic language here. And there is a secure tunnel created between the cloud location and your premise. All your data, all your application is with you on your site. That is not going to cloud. Cloud is only allowing you easier management. Basically, you will get a web portal with which you can manage the cloud location, and with the click of a button, you can do activities. The latency you need for this activity is 100 to 200 milliseconds. You don't need less latency, even that is manageable latency. You don't move your data to the cloud.
Understood.
So, Shobna, do you see any benefit of this kind of a distributed cloud architecture?
Yeah, I think the concept is quite interesting theoretically. One needs to really look at how it works practically, because the issues when we talk of remote locations and the latency issues are definitely still there in a lot of remote parts of India. We still have, challenges in terms of how we get them very seamlessly connected. And the second is, although like Sanjay mentioned, the data would still be there at, the local level. So how would it really tie up is something that we really need to practically understand how it works. Of course, theoretically, it does make a lot of sense, because then you're, combining the operations of the cloud with the, challenges that you have in terms of the, remote locations. So it's like a win-win type of a situation that definitely looks, but like I said, it's sounds good in the terms of theory, something that we would definitely need to look at how practically it works.
All of us need to peel the onion.
So, yes, go ahead, Mr. Sharma.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, it's a very interesting concept, and for organization like who is governed and regulated by many of ministry guideline like us, where the data localization etc. is still is a talk. This brings a very interesting offering in terms of you get the feeling, as Sanjay has mentioned. I was thinking, like having a 5-star restaurant at home. So you get all those service at home while you are in your data center. Probably, though it is talked in a very controlled manner. But I was just trying to extrapolate. We have so many, scenario. You have maybe multiple storages from multiple vendors, but you cannot see as a one single, chunk of storage. Same is for compute. Likewise, it can go on. So if this comes in your data center, you get a feel, experience, and the manageability like cloud, which you are getting in the cloud, but your data resides in your premises. So that's a very interesting concept. I think we need to really look forward, how it turns out in future. So very interesting. Just wanted to.
So Sanjay, everybody is excited about this idea. Now they want to see the proof that it works.
Absolutely, we'll show it to you.
So Anand, I want to ask your view also. Do you think this is something of interest to organizations like yours? Where do you think you could use it if it's of interest?
Yes, it is really interesting. See, what happens, whether it's in the manufacturing sector, what you have is basically the OT and the IT. And you also try to deploy certain new applications, whether it is IoT or edge devices, or the video analytics, which is very, very data intensive for certain applications. So it is important that we keep some data at the premise itself.
Yes.
And for the enterprise level, there are multiple choices or the hybrid cloud. So just imagine if we have the multiple hybrid clouds and multiple technologies deployed at the on-premise of any manufacturing plant. So it's really adds to the complexity. Yeah. Now, if you see, there are three main components: the operating system, the database layers, it could be anything, and then comes the technology platform, DevOps. At least if we can standardize on one, the operating system, that can solve some of the problems. So the hybrid cloud, cybersecurity, all the data security issues, or some sort of standardization. So this is really interesting. If we can standardize on the operating system layer, and then with the help of the container technology, at least we can to some extent minimize the issues with respect to the cybersecurity or the data security, as well as the portability. So it is an interesting concept, worth exploring. But what sort of features and compliances and ongoing support we will get, these are things which I think need to be seen to see that this is successful.
So Sanjay, would you like to answer that? I mean, in terms of what services can you offer? Can you do a POC? Can you demonstrate this? Do you offer something?
Yeah, we can do a live demo. We can do a POC as well, and we can obviously take you through all the fundamentals of this particular solution. Like I said, it deploys OpenShift for you on your site, and OpenShift gives you a lot of features. The beauty is that you don't have to worry about deploying the architecture. You don't have to worry about installing open source databases. You don't have to worry about installing CI/CD pipelines. Everything is done remotely through the cloud. And it gives you all the self-healing and self-service features, and everything is managed remotely, so you don't have to worry.
So, but this kind of implementation takes how long?
See, generally, when you try and deploy a new application on your on-premise location, then you have to buy the hardware, you have to buy the operating system, you have to plumb this entire infrastructure, and then you have to do network planning, and then you have to start deploying an application. Those generally take 7 to 8 weeks. Practically, people may make tall figures, but 7 to 8 months. 7 to 8 months is what it takes time for you to start your activity and place purchase orders and then, get it going. With this, we can do it in a few weeks.
So Sanjay, a few tips, few points, which when you reach out to the CIOs, the variables need to be minimal. I think it's very, very important. Yeah. The latency need to be stuck. It is very, very important. Whatever you're trying to say, especially cross-border, okay? And the analytics, like what I think Anand was trying to say about the video analytics, it could be analytics, video, audio, any of those, depending on the application. You need to really have huge amount of interoperability between various service providers and various platforms providers. That is where you will be able to really get good POC. I think these are very, very important points while you really take it to the market and talk to all of us.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sanjay.
So anybody else had any other suggestions for Sanjay on, I think you are all very interested in the distributed cloud, but what would you like Sanjay to do so that, he can convert this from an idea to something concrete and convince you that it works? He's here.
So one small clarification I would like to have from Sanjay, because this distributed cloud is sounding really interesting, but yes, unless we really see this in the POC or some kind of practically implementing it, maybe things may not be, that can be corroborated with what we are discussing here. One important point here is that, okay, we'll have certain applications which may not be the cloud ready or compatible, that will be still on our servers. And I want to stitch analytics out of that. Maybe we'll be connecting the dots of the different application data points, or which may be on-premise and which could be some in the SaaS or some could be on the other cloud. Whether that can be also achieved. And we are all talking here theoretically. This data latency.
If you have an absolutely monolithic application which cannot be converted, for example, then there is an exercise. So what we are doing, see, today we are starting with this service with the deployment of OpenShift. OpenShift is a platform on which you can deploy any application. The Operator Hub allows you to deploy any application of your choice, right? So from that perspective, you have a very rich ecosystem. But for example, if you have an application which is not container ready or which cannot be converted to containers, obviously, right? Then we will have a architecture going forward where we will also support virtual machines on this architecture, right? Once virtual machines are supported, you can bring any application. Then you don't have to necessarily convert, right? But however, you will get best benefit if you convert your application to a container-based architecture. You will also have the choice of deploying a cloud pack. So we have got cloud packs available for various functionalities. You can do API integration. You can create a data platform. You can create, you can do DevOps. You can do automation, business automation, right? Rules, engines, etc., etc. So there are ready-made applications available which you can deploy, which are standardized applications on that architecture. And you can also deploy open source databases. So there are many customers who need a MongoDB on their remote site. Now, getting skills for MongoDB is not easy, right? Even getting it installed at that particular location. Here with this architecture, with the click of a button, I can install Postgre. In fact, we launched Postgre just 2 weeks back, right? So I can install open source databases for you. So I think this is growing and a lot of things are coming, but we will definitely speak to you and give you clarity.
Thank you, Sanjay. I think, we have, unless anybody has any other questions, we've sort of come to the end of time for this session. And I really want to thank all of you for this very, very, invigorating, interesting discussion that we have had, and lots of new ideas came. I think people are all quite enthusiastic about your distributed cloud, and people would love to see more of it. Maybe one suggestion is that maybe you can hold more education sessions about this distributed cloud and how it works to help people appreciate, how they could leverage it. So I think that would be well received by the CIO community. There's a new concept, so everybody would like to understand this. But I want to thank all of you for, taking the time to be here. And thank you so much, Sanjay, for, patiently answering all these questions and, explaining some of these new concepts. It was really nice. My thanks to, Mr. Ashish Desai, who unfortunately had to drop out because of his connection. Mr. Gyan Pandey, Mr. C. Subramania, Ms. Shobna Lile, Mr. L.B. Sharma, Mr. Anand Budolia, Thank you all for being here and for participating in this discussion. Have a lovely evening and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.